You can't change Washington from the inside. You can only change it from the outside. That's how I got elected.
The president today threw in the white flag of surrender again. He said he can't change Washington from inside. He can only change it from outside. Well, we're going to give him that chance in November. He's going outside.
All right, that's the scene today from the campaign trail, and before that, the appearance of President Obama on a Univision interview. Now, we mentioned before that Romney, he's obviously trailing Obama, no news flash there, but not just in numbers, also when it comes to fundraising, but it's actually even worse than that for Team Romney. I want Andrew to help break it down for us.
Well, I was just about to go outside, so it's... All right. Mitt Romney kicked off his fall campaign with just over $50 million available to spend and a large loan to repay. He burned through most of what he raised in August, and he spent heavily on, get this, staff bonuses that totaled of about $207,000. President Obama also spent most of what he raised in August, but he begins the fall with about $89 million in cash reserves. However, the RNC, the Republican National Committee, has way more cash on hand than their Democratic counterparts. Some are suggesting that the cash flow problem is the reason why Romney has been focusing so much on fundraisers rather than face-to-face contact with voters in swing states. But that strategy may be hurting him. Look at the update from the battleground. In Wisconsin and Colorado, Obama's up by 5. In Iowa, he's up by 8. In Nevada, Obama's up by 3. In Florida, he's up by nearly 2. Pennsylvania, Obama's up by double digits, 11 points. And as Romney's home state of Michigan, thought by some to be a swing state, Obama's up by 9. Romney leads North Carolina, but only just under 2 points, Rich.
And that is a problem, Andrew, because we've gone through, tell everybody, the road to 270 here. Some states are locked in, and while if you just look at the map, what's red and what's blue, it looks like a split, if not more red. From an electoral college standpoint, there's so few paths for 270 for Romney, especially if he loses some of those.
If Obama wins both Pennsylvania and Ohio, it's over. Obama gets to 270. If Romney's able to win North Carolina, he's still going to poach 1 or 2 big swing states of Virginia or some combination of Colorado and Nevada or something like that, and he's trailing in all those states.
And for me, I mean, Wisconsin, that's what Romney, that's what Ryan was for, right? And I just don't get how most of these states, take Florida out of it for a second, they're Midwest states, middle-class voters. He's not going to close the gap of relatability to them. So unless there's a big screw-up here or a world event here that paints the administration in a terrible light, you tell me. I mean, the economic metrics aren't going to move too much. We got 8% unemployment. It's not going to go to 9 or 7 in the next month here. It's either the debates or a big screw-up. That's the only way this happens, don't you think?
That's not true. Here's another way it can happen, quite easily, and here's why I don't put much credibility in those polls. You're talking about an African-American president.
You're doing the whole Bradley thing right now,
no. I'm not the Bradley thing, but no, what I'm saying is, what if a little bit of Obama's base decides we're not happy with the president? For example, we don't like what he did on gay marriage. I'm not going to vote for Romney, but I'm staying home.
Well, don't you think the enthusiasm gap's also there on the right? Nobody's fired up for the guy.
Well, at least, but we don't know the impact of Paul Ryan in terms of turning out the conservative.
Is he in a witness protection program? I haven't seen
yes,
but I think the calculus for Republicans is slightly different in that I absolutely agree with you, and particularly for Obama's base, the issue there is not them voting for Romney, but just staying home. What I think the Republicans are counting on is trying to convince voters that even if you don't like Romney, and a lot of them don't, they're just voting to be against Obama, the part of the calculation is that if Romney's president and the House is still Republican and potentially the Senate becomes Republican, things will get done easier and they'll get done quicker. So they'll be able to convince Republicans, hey, put us in office because we'll actually get government moving again.
Okay. I think your argument would have merit here, and it's always the black guy. I always think that the black guy's going to get left out of office. It didn't work 4 years ago, okay?
Right, but I think history's on my side.
Probably.
And if you don't believe me, ask Tom Bradley.
But I got one more argument.
He's deceased. Okay. Right.
I got one more, though, argument why I still think it's even tougher than the numbers suggest. You know it's bad when people in your own party, with less than 2 months, Andrew, to go to the election, yes, I'm doing the math here, are running in the opposite direction from you. Now, this is just a little sampling here. Tommy Thompson, I mentioned him before here, former cabinet member under Bush, U.S. Senate candidate for the state of Wisconsin. Remember that, Paul Ryan? He said the following yesterday, The presidential thing is bound to have an impact on every election. If your standard bearer for the presidency is not doing well, it's going to reflect on the down ballot. He's trailing by about 9 points in a race many people thought he'd be up or at least even in. Now let's go to Massachusetts. Scott Brown in Massachusetts, distancing himself from Romney's so-called moocher video, saying the following: "That's not the way that I view the world. As someone who grew up in tough circumstances, I know that being on public assistance isn't a spot that anybody wants to be in." Now, leave even the guys on the campaign trail who are trying to get elected. How about the fourth estate, the chattering class here and the conservatives who would like anybody but Obama, right? Peggy Noonan, never going to be confused with a lefty, at the Wall Street Journal of all places, she wrote the following. Okay, now trust me. She wrote a tough piece on him before, but she doubled, if not tripled down in today's piece. The Romney campaign has to get turned around. This week I called it incompetent, but only because I was being polite. I really meant rolling calamity. And she even went on to say that she thought that James Baker should be called in. They should throw out the campaign staff and bring him in. And I got to tell you, I would take her advice, whatever that's worth. Now, when you look at the Mitt 47% comment, which I believe you're going to hear a lot more of between now and the end of the election, it's already going to be part of ads. Bill Kristol, Weekly Standard, again, as right as they get and a neocon and proud of it, says, "It remains important for the country that Romney wins in November unless he chooses to step down and we get the Ryan Rubio ticket that we deserve." Always nice here with 40 some odd days when they're going to try and switch the ticket around. He goes on to say, "But that shouldn't blind us to the fact that Romney's comments are stupid and arrogant." And finally, Matt Dowd, former strategist for President George W. Bush, he said, quote, he, talking about Mr. Romney, has had two narratives over the last week and a half. One that says, is he compassionate? The other that says, is he competent? Now, all that criticism has got Mrs. Romney, well, I'll just say a little teed off.
Stop it. This is hard. You want to try it? Get in the ring.
Okay. Do I sense a little dissension in the ranks?
Oh, absolutely, and it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with dissension.
It's not good.
But it's not good. The timing's obviously horrible for this. And look, I will go back to something that I said about the convention, the Republican convention itself. What that Republican convention said to me was that there is more energy among sort of the up-and-coming candidates in the Republican Party than there is at the top of the ticket. And the unkempt, uncombed Clint Eastwood is a great example of that.
What it said to me is they just don't like Mitt Romney.
And
Plain and
exactly
simple.
right, exactly right.
Plain and simple.
And
he was like a fish out of water at his own convention.
Stop it. This is hard. This is hard. Stop it.
But you know what? I just want to say this one thing in fairness to Mrs. Romney. My experience, and we've been around the park a few times, my experience over 25 years, it's hardest on the spouses than it is the candidates. Because I've been called everything but a child of God by some of these wives the moment you get backstage and the cameras are not there. So in fairness to her, that's her man, that's her husband.
Oh, I don't fault her at all. And I thought she acquitted herself well in Tampa at the convention.
She did.
Good for me. I would say, if anything, get Ann Romney out there more if I was the Romney campaign. What I'm just saying is, I got a month ago a lot of different ways and different narratives that he could have played. He could have played this different ways. Once the primary was over and he got through it, maybe they didn't like him, but they thought he was most electable. He has chosen not only the hardest and worst path in every time, but he has confirmed every worst suspicion about him to Republicans, that he's not really conservative. He doesn't have any core principles. He's etch-a-sketch by his own campaign. And to the moderates out there who said, well, you know what, maybe he would do a better job for me. I don't have to let get me back to work.
Correct.
Get us down
1,000% correct.
All those mistakes, he's only down 3.
And the reality is, he's trying to play to too many people. If he had stayed to probably who he was, he wouldn't be having this problem. But he couldn't do that and get through the primary.
Okay. When we come back, 2 months, Andrew, to the election, we're going to hear what you at home have been saying on this issue, and we're going to get predictions from the brain trust here. He says tongue firmly in cheek. Stay with us.